My name is Cameron Walker. I'm 29 years old, an engineer, and I died. On September 8th, 2022, an explosion at the SpaceX facility in Texas ended my life. For 17 minutes, I was clinically dead. And during that time, I met Jesus. Not as a distant figure, not as a story from Sunday school, but as someone real, radiant, alive. And what he showed me shattered everything I believed about life, death, and the future of humanity. This isn't just a story about a near-death experience. It's a warning, a revelation, and it centers around something, or someone, you may never have questioned: Elon Musk. If anything you hear stirs your heart, even for a moment, don't brush it off. Leave a like, share this message, and drop a comment. Because this isn't fiction. This is a call to wake up. For the engineer who died in a SpaceX explosion, I was just a regular guy with an extraordinary job. Since I was a kid, I'd been obsessed with space. Straight out of the University of Colorado, I landed a dream position at SpaceX as a propulsion systems engineer. I believed I was building the future. My wife, Elena, and I had just bought our first home in Brownsville, Texas. We were trying for our first child. Life felt full of purpose. Like every step I'd taken had led me here to something greater than myself. Working at SpaceX was intense. Long hours, high stakes, but the mission inspired me, taking humanity to Mars. Each morning, I walked into that facility with a sense of pride. I believed I was helping save our species, but I had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. That morning started like any other. Coffee at 5 a.m., a kiss on Elena's forehead while she was still asleep, a 30-minute drive to Starbase. We were running final pressure tests on the Raptor engines for the next Mars prototype. Everything seemed routine: briefings, data checks, safety reviews. Then, it happened. I was in the engine bay when a pressure line ruptured. The explosion was massive, violent, instant. One moment I was checking my tablet. The next, it was all white. But here's the strange part. I didn't black out immediately. I felt this unbearable heat, then a crushing pressure on my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. All I could think about was Elena, how we'd been talking about baby names the night before. Then, darkness. But what happened next? What I saw, what I felt, would change my life forever. Floating above my body. The out-of-body moment. Suddenly the pain was gone. No more pressure. No more burning in my lungs. Just silence. A strange lightness, like I was weightless. And that's when I realized I was floating. I looked down and saw my body pinned beneath twisted steel and shattered concrete. Blood pooled around me. People were running toward the wreckage, shouting my name. But their voices were distant, like I was hearing them from underwater. I tried to call out, to tell them I was okay, but no sound came. That's when it hit me. I wasn't in my body anymore. Then a light appeared. But this wasn't like any light I'd seen before. It wasn't just bright, it was alive. It pulsed with warmth, like it knew me. It drew me in, and I didn't resist. For the first time in my life, I felt a peace, deeper than anything I'd ever known. Not just calm, it was like I belonged. And that's when I saw him. Standing in the light was Jesus. But not the Jesus from paintings or stained glass windows. No, this Jesus radiated love. Tangible, overwhelming love. It washed over me like a warm ocean. His eyes, deep brown, infinite compassion, met mine, and I instantly began to cry. Not from sadness, but from sheer relief, from the feeling of finally being home. "Cameron," he said, his voice. It was like honey and thunder all at once. Every part of me recognized that voice, even though I'd never heard it before. "I've been waiting to show you something," he said. I tried to speak, but the words stuck in my throat. Eventually, I whispered, "Lord, I don't understand. What's happening?" He smiled, a smile more powerful than any sunrise, and replied, "You've been working so hard to help humanity reach Mars, but you don't yet understand why they really want to go there." "What do you mean?" I asked. And that's when everything I believed began to unravel. The hidden counsel and the non-human beings Jesus raised his hand. and instantly the light around us shifted. We were now standing inside what looked like a massive conference room, but it was unlike anything I had ever seen on Earth. The walls were made of a dark, almost liquid-like material that seemed to absorb the light around us. At the center was a long obsidian table. Around it sat figures, some in sharp, expensive suits, others not quite human. I recognized a few of the faces: world leaders, tech moguls, people I'd seen on the news. But there were others, beings whose skin shimmered like metal, whose eyes were entirely black. They were watching, listening, planning. "This is what they call the council," Jesus said softly beside me. "They've been preparing for decades." I watched in stunned silence as the room erupted into discussion. But what they were saying, it wasn't about humanity's future. It wasn't about survival, science, or saving the Earth. They were talking about escape. "The awakening is accelerating faster than we predicted," said one man, someone I knew from televised interviews and articles. "People are turning back to prayer. They're seeking truth. We must leave before the final harvest begins." One of the non-human beings leaned forward. Its voice was like cold metal scraping against glass. "Mars will be our sanctuary when the king returns. We will continue our influence from there. Rebuild once the dust settles." I felt sick. "What are they talking about?" I asked Jesus. "What awakening? What harvest?" Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder. Immediately, calm flooded my body. Peace, clarity. "There is a spiritual war most people cannot see," he said. "These beings, these fallen ones, they know their time is short. They've been using human ambition, science, and technology to build their escape plan. And then, he showed me something even more terrifying. The dark agenda, behind the Mars mission. With a wave of his hand, Jesus shifted the vision again. We were now floating above the SpaceX facility, my workplace, but I was seeing it differently, spiritually. The entire area was cloaked in a dense, shadowy fog. Dark entities hovered over the buildings. They weren't physical, but their influence was real. I could feel it, manipulating thoughts, whispering into minds. "These spirits have guided the Mars project from the beginning," Jesus said. "Not to save humanity, but to build a refuge for themselves." I watched engineers and executives walk the halls, completely unaware of the dark presence steering their decisions. People like me, good-hearted, ambitious, intelligent, being silently manipulated. And then I saw Mars, not through a telescope, not through satellite footage, but through divine sight. I saw robotic systems already there, building massive underground structures, not research stations, not habitats, but fortresses. Layers of infrastructure buried deep beneath the surface, hidden from the world. "What is this?" I asked. "They are preparing for spiritual warfare," Jesus replied. "A war that will span beyond Earth. What they're building is designed to continue deception, to maintain influence over lost souls, even after I return." It hit me like a punch in the chest. The technology we had developed, the rocket engines I had helped design, it wasn't just about reaching the stars. It was about creating a lifeline for beings who knew their time on Earth was ending. And then, Jesus said something that broke my heart. Saved by her prayers. The power of Elena's intercession. Jesus turned to me, his expression filled with love but also sorrow. "Your heart was pure, Cameron. You truly believed you were helping. And so do many others. But they've been deceived." Then he showed me something that brought me to my knees. I saw Elena, my wife, sitting in our small kitchen back on Earth. She was praying, not just once, every morning, every night, whispering my name, asking God to protect me, to open my eyes. She had been covering me with prayer while I worked in the very center of this deception. I saw her laying hands on my jacket before I left for work. I saw her praying over my pillow while I was still asleep. I saw her crying in our bedroom, pleading with God to keep me safe. "She saved you," Jesus said. "Her prayers kept your heart soft. They kept you seeking truth instead of just chasing success. That's why you're here with me now, instead of being lost with them." Tears streamed down my face. I had no idea. All this time, I thought I was just good at my job. I thought I'd earned my success, but now I realized I had been shielded, held up by a woman whose faith never wavered. You were being protected, Jesus continued, so that when the time came, you would be ready to see the truth. And now, you are. The divine mission. You're going back to warn them. I looked at Jesus, overwhelmed. My heart was breaking under the weight of what I had just witnessed. The deception, the manipulation, the dark forces behind everything I once believed in. And then, the unbearable beauty of Elena's love, her faith. But what do I do now? I asked, my voice trembling. How can I stop this? I'm just one man. Jesus looked into my eyes with fierce tenderness and took my hands in his. You're going back, Cameron, he said. The words hit me like lightning, charged with both power and responsibility. You're not going back to stop the mission. That's not your calling, he explained. You're going back to warn them, to open their eyes, to help them see that their hope is not in escaping to another planet, but in returning to me. I felt fear rise up in me. But no one will believe me, I whispered. I'm just an engineer. They'll think I've gone mad. Jesus smiled gently. So did they say about Noah. So did they say about the prophets. I don't need everyone to believe you, Cameron. I only need the ones I'm calling to hear my voice through yours. Then he showed me something else, something that burned into my soul. The explosion was no accident, divine protection at the edge of death. Jesus gestured around us, and I suddenly understood where we were, somewhere both vast and intimate, a place of pure light but also deep comfort, like a beloved home. This is the threshold, he said softly. Beyond here is my Father's house, with rooms prepared for those who love me. For a moment I was tempted. The idea of peace, of no more fear, no more pain, no more struggle, was overwhelming. I thought about never having to watch Elena cry when I came home stressed, never having to carry this heavy burden again. It sounded like paradise, because it was paradise. But then I thought about Elena, alone in our house, waiting for me. I thought about the people at SpaceX who truly believed in their work. I thought about the children growing up in a world where the elite had abandoned Earth for their own survival. I have to go back, don't I asked, tears streaming down my face. Jesus nodded solemnly. Your mission isn't finished, but I will be with you every step of the way. He placed his hand on my forehead, and suddenly I understood things I had never understood before. The purpose of technology, the separation between true exploration and escape, the power of truth to set people free, returning to life, a changed man. I woke up to the sound of machines beeping, Elena sobbing beside me, and doctors bustling around the room. My chest felt like it had been crushed by a truck, which in a way it had. The doctors said it was a miracle. 17 minutes clinically dead, no brain damage, no cognitive impairment. Just some broken ribs and bruised organs that were healing faster than they should have been. Elena held my hand so tightly I thought she might break my fingers. Her face was red and swollen from crying, her hair messy, but she was the most beautiful sight I had ever seen. Cameron, she whispered, they said you were gone. They said. I squeezed her hand with all the strength I could muster. I'm here, baby. I'm here. But I wasn't the same man who had kissed her goodbye that morning. I had seen beyond the veil. I had met Jesus face to face, and I had learned the horrifying truth behind the mission we were working on, quitting SpaceX, walking away from the hidden agenda. The day I left the hospital, I knew I couldn't go back, not just physically, but spiritually. Officially, I told SpaceX I needed time to recover from my injuries. Unofficially, I knew I couldn't be part of building escape pods for fallen angels anymore. Some former colleagues reached out, worried about me. A few listened when I shared what I'd seen and heard, quietly starting to question things themselves. David, one of the engineers, told me he'd been having nightmares about dark figures haunting the facility for months, but thought it was just stress. The hardest part wasn't leaving my job, it was carrying this secret knowledge every day. Watching news about Mars missions felt like a knife in my chest. I knew many good people worked on those projects, genuinely trying to help humanity, but I also knew the dark agenda driving the elite. Elena and I began attending a small church that preached about spiritual warfare and the end times. Not fear-mongering, but biblical truth about the battle between light and darkness. I shared my testimony there, and many received it with open hearts. A new relationship with God. Prayer as warfare. Before the accident, I believed in Jesus, but it was more like an insurance policy, a vague hope, something nice to believe in, but not central to my life. Now everything had changed. Jesus was real, not a concept or symbol, but a living presence I could talk to throughout the day, like he was standing right beside me. Prayer was no longer just words before meals. It was warfare. Elena and I prayed every morning, asking God to expose the hidden agendas, protect the innocent scientists and engineers caught in deception, and grant wisdom to leaders with pure hearts. We prayed that people everywhere would wake up to the spiritual realities around them before it was too late. I began writing down every detail of my encounter with Jesus, the visions and the warnings. I didn't know what to do with all this knowledge yet, but I knew it was important. Maybe someday I'd write a book. Maybe I'd speak at churches. For now, I would keep sharing my story, one person at a time. The elite's escape plan, running from God. The elite believe they can escape what's coming. They think Mars is a refuge, a new world order far from God's reach. But Jesus showed me the truth. There is nowhere to run. No matter how far they travel, Mars, the farthest galaxy, they cannot escape his authority. He created the universe. Every planet, every star, every corner is under his dominion. The plan to build a multilateral civilization is not about survival, it's about running from accountability. Mars isn't a fresh start, it's a replay of a fallen world. The fallen past of Mars, a warning for Earth. What shocked me most was the vision Jesus showed me about Mars, not as the barren red planet science talks about, but as a world that once thrived. Mars was once green and blue, full of life, just like Earth, but it fell. The civilization that lived there chose rebellion over repentance. They turned away from God's truth and pursued their own selfish ambitions. I saw how they tried to flee their judgment, attempting to escape to other worlds. But the red dust that now covers Mars, it's more than just iron oxide. It's the remains of a world destroyed by pride and deception. Jesus said this isn't the first time this cosmic pattern has played out. Across the universe, entire worlds rise and fall based on the choice to serve either God or themselves. Mars was a warning, a mirror showing what Earth is risking right now. The same spiritual forces are at work here, pushing humanity toward the same tragic path. And just like Mars, Earth is facing a choice. Will we turn back to our Creator, or will we chase after escape, repeating the same mistakes that led to Mars's downfall? The mission to colonize Mars isn't inherently evil. There will be brave souls seeking knowledge and exploration. But the hidden agenda, the plan to run from God and judgment, is a deception crafted by dark forces. It's a warning that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, no matter how far we travel in space, spiritual truths remain unchanged. If Mars fell because its people rejected God's authority, Earth's fate depends on what we choose today. The burden of truth, living with the revelation. Waking up after that near-death experience, I wasn't the same person anymore. Every time I saw news about Mars missions or space exploration achievements, a heavy weight settled in my chest, a mix of sorrow, fear, and urgency. I knew there were good people working on those projects, people with pure hearts who genuinely wanted to help humanity. But I also knew about the hidden forces at play, the dark agenda driving the elite to build escape routes far from God's reach. Living with this knowledge has been one of the hardest challenges of my life. It's a burden that isolates you. People don't want to hear the truth. Many think you're crazy, paranoid, or just seeking attention. I lost friends. I faced skepticism even from those I trusted. But I also found unexpected support, like Elena, whose faith never wavered, and a growing number of people awakening to the spiritual realities around us. Every day is a battle to keep my heart soft and my mind focused on the mission. I've realized that carrying this truth is not a curse, it's a responsibility. The world needs to hear what's hidden in the shadows, because the future isn't about technology or escaping to other planets. It's about choosing whom we will serve. Will we follow the light, or will we chase after lies and deception? The final message: hope beyond the stars. Despite everything, the darkness, the deception, the looming spiritual battle, there is hope. Jesus showed me a glimpse of his kingdom, more magnificent than anything we could ever build on Mars or any other planet. It's a kingdom not made by human hands, a cosmic kingdom where every knee will bow, not only on Earth, but on Mars and throughout the universe. The elite may think they can run, but they cannot outrun God. Their technology, their power, their schemes, they all pale in comparison to the authority of the Creator. Our hope isn't in becoming a multi-planetary species. Our hope is in becoming a redeemed species. It's about turning back to God before it's too late. I've been given a second chance at life with a clear mission: to expose the hidden truths, to warn others, to share the message of salvation. If you work in the space industry, or if you're simply curious, I urge you to pray for discernment. Question who is really behind the agenda. Seek the truth beyond the surface. This message might sound crazy to some, but remember, many once thought Noah was crazy. God wins in the end. So don't put your trust in the plans of men. Put your trust in God's plan, because his plan is the only one that will succeed. If this message touched your heart, please share it. Together we can wake up the world.